Hey there, busy kids. Welcome to our third lesson in this first module. Today's lesson is just going to be a theory lesson. So we're not actually going to be playing anything on the piano, but we're going to start looking at our circle of fifths. I mentioned in our first lesson that circle of fifths is something we're going to be taking a look at and going deep with in this level 5B. And what the circle of fifths is it is a visual representation where we're kind of organizing all the things that we've learned when it comes to major scales and minor scales and key signatures and how they all relate to each other. So we've kind of learned all of the pieces of the circle of fifths in different lessons, and now we're going to put it all together on this chart. We're dividing this into 3 different parts, okay? And this is the first part here. Now, before we get started, I want you to be sure that you have this circle of fifths, the materials printed, because I'm going to be helping you fill out the sharps section of the circle of fifths that you're going to see. So I want to be sure that you have it printed so that you can fill it out as we go, and that way you'll be able to do your homework more easily. All right, so if your materials are printed, let's go ahead and have a look at our circle of fifths. Now for this first part of our circle of fifths, we're going to focus on this part here. Remember I said we're doing 3 parts. We'll kind of almost make like a peace sign here. But we're going to focus on this piece right here of the circle of fifths that's going to talk about sharps. Now the first thing we're going to do is work on these circles right here and filling these in. So I'd like you to fill out the one on the first sheet of paper with me, and then you'll be filling out the other 2 on your own so that you get really familiar with how to do it. We're going to start by putting the top part of these circles. These circles, if you think of it as like a street, and on one side of the street is our major key, and on the other side of the street is the minor key. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by doing all our major keys. And we're always going to start at the top with the key of C. C major. Now if you look at a keyboard and you were to go up a fifth, remember circle of fifths from C, what note would you end up on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What key is this? G. So you're going to put a G. And because we're doing major keys, you're going to use capital letters. Now, if we were to go up a fifth from G, we'd end up on which key? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D. So put a capital D here. If we were to go up a fifth from D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we end up on A. So put your capital A. And then if we go up a fifth from A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we end up on E. So now we have all the major keys on this part of our circle of fifths. Now remember I said across the street neighbor is going to be the minor keys. So we need to think of what the relative minor is. Do you remember how we figure out what the relative minor is of a major key? We go down 3 half steps. So the relative minor of C, if I go down 3 half steps, remember half steps 1 key to the very next key. So 1, 2, 3, I end up on A. So A is the relative minor of C major. Because it's minor, I'm going to use the lowercase letter, so a lowercase a underneath or across the street from the major key. Now we have G. If we go down 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3, the relative minor is E. So I use a lowercase e. Now we're on D, 3 half steps down, 1, 2, 3, E. Now A, 3 half steps down, 1, 2, 3, F sharp. Again, lowercase. And then E, if I go 3 half steps down, 1, 2, 3, C sharp. And again, it's going to be lowercase. So now you've filled out this outer part of the circle, right? We've moved up in fifths with our major keys, and then we found our across the street neighbors from those major keys, which are the relative minors. Now what we're going to do is fill in the key signatures. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. One is maybe you have all these key signatures memorized and you can just pop them in. Key signatures are something when we talked about the order of sharps, we talked about in the last level and we really focused on that. So maybe you do have these memorized and no problem writing in the key signature for G major or D major or whatever that might be. But I'm going to break it down and show you how it relates to our order of sharps, because again, remember the circle of fifths is kind of a visual representation of how we organize all of that. So even if you do have these key signatures memorized, I'm still going to kind of spell out how we do it a little bit. Do you remember our order of sharps from the last level? We had that mnemonic device, funny, cats, go, dancing, at, every, birthday. So this is our order of sharps. Now, C has no sharps, no flats. That's kind of why it's right here on the top of our circle of fifths. But now we're going to build up in our order of sharps. We go to the key of G major, and we have our first sharp, which is F sharp. So we can draw our F sharp with the key of G major. Now we're going to go to our next key up a fifth to D. So now we have F sharp, but we're going to add the next one from the order of sharps, F and C. So we can draw the key signature F and C for D major here. Now we're going to add another one for A. So we have F, C, and our next sharp is G. So we draw our key signature F, C, and G. Remember, G sits on the top of the treble clef staff. Now here we're going to add one more. We have F, C, G, and D. So getting a little long here, but I do my F, C, G, and D. So that's how we build out this part of our circle of fifths. And you can see how all these things relate to each other. We have our major key, our minor key, the key signature. Major key, minor key, key signature. And it all builds up in a really orderly way. So what I've asked you to do for your homework is to copy this. First time, look at your original one so you get the hang of it. But then the third time you do it, the second time you do it, I want you to try and do it on your own without covering it up and without looking at what you've done to see if you can really make sense of this. When you feel comfortable with it, you'll be ready to move on to the next lesson. Thanks for diving into the circle of fifths with me. I'll see you soon.